Today we're diving into something you've probably heard a lot about, cannabis, and its connection to getting older. You know, there's so much buzz, so much hype around this plant, but what's the real story? What does the science actually tell us? Well, let's get into it.
So here it is, the billion-dollar question, right? Could cannabis really be the secret to healthy aging? I mean, you see it everywhere. Products on the high street, articles popping up online, they're all kind of hinting that this plant is some kind of fountain of youth. But is it? Is it for real? That's what we're here to figure out. We're going to unpack the science, look at the very real risks, and get to the bottom of it all.
Okay, so to really get why there's so much hype, we have to start with the science, with the hope. And believe me, that hope is based on some really fascinating biology. It's all about how these compounds in cannabis actually work with our bodies.
And right at the center of this whole conversation is something called the endocannabinoid system. Now, this is a system that's already inside your body right now. The best way to think of it is like a master regulator. It's working 24/7 to keep things in balance. We're talking everything from your mood, to your memory, to your immune system. And here's the kicker. Compounds in cannabis, you've heard of them, CBD and THC, they can actually plug into this system. And that is precisely why scientists are so excited.
So you're probably thinking, okay, so what does this actually mean for getting older? Well, researchers are really zeroing in on three big areas. First up is inflammation. You know that chronic, low-grade inflammation that's behind so many age-related diseases? They're looking at that. Second is something called neuroprotection, basically protecting our brain cells from damage. And you can see how huge that could be for things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. And then there's the third one, which is more about right now, helping manage those nagging symptoms, chronic pain, bad sleep, stiffness, the stuff that can really affect your day-to-day life. And this right here is a perfect example of where the excitement and the reality check collide. There was this study, and it was a wild one. Scientists gave tiny doses of THC, that's the stuff in cannabis that gets you high, to older mice. And what happened? It looked like it actually restored their memory. I mean, wow, that's an incredible finding, right? But, and this is a huge but, humans are not giant mice. What works in a lab animal just doesn't always work for us. And that's something we absolutely have to remember through all of this.
All right, so we've seen the promising side, but now we have to flip the coin because there is a much riskier side to this story. And this is really where that genuine hope starts getting all tangled up with dangerous hype.
Look, it's so easy to hear about the potential good stuff and get carried away. But we have to be super clear about this. Cannabis is not a magic cure. It is not risk-free.
And this really gets to the heart of it. It's a balancing act, a real tension. On one side, you've got the promise, right? Symptom relief, maybe even some protective effects. But on the other side, you've got some very real dangers. We're talking risks to your heart, worries about what it does to your thinking, and something a lot of people don't consider, dangerous interactions with other drugs.
Okay, so let's dig into those risks a bit more. When we're talking about older adults, heart health is of course a huge deal, and some studies are now linking daily cannabis use to a higher risk of heart attack and stroke. Then there's memory and thinking. The research there is kind of all over the place, but it's a serious thing to think about. And here's an ironic one. High THC products can actually make anxiety worse, even if that's what someone is using it for. But honestly, that last point, drug interactions, that might be the biggest, most overlooked danger of them all.
So how does that even work? Well, imagine there's a traffic jam in your liver. Your liver has these special enzymes. Think of them like workers on a processing line that break down medications. When you take CBD, it jumps in line and hogs all those workers. So what happens to your other meds, like say blood thinners? They can't get processed properly. They're stuck. And this can mean your prescription drug becomes way too powerful, or maybe not powerful enough. Either way, that is a really dangerous situation.
Okay, so enough with the theory. Let's bring this all down to earth. What does this complicated picture of promise and peril actually look like in the real world, especially for those of us here in the UK?
Navigating this in the UK is tricky, to say the least. First, you've got the NHS. Getting a prescription for a cannabis-based medicine there is incredibly difficult, almost impossible for most. Then you've got private clinics. They offer proper doctor-led access, but yeah, it's going to cost you. And then there's what everyone sees, the high street CBD products. They're everywhere, they're easy to buy, but here's the thing. They're sold as food supplements, not medicine, and the key difference is regulation. The medical stuff is consistent and controlled. The high street stuff, the quality can be all over the map.
And this brings me to something super important that almost nobody talks about. I'm calling it the dosage gap.
It's this huge difference between the doses they use in scientific studies and what you're actually getting in a bottle you buy from a shop.
Okay, you really need to get this. When you read about those amazing studies, the scientists are often using really high, really pure, super precise doses to get those results. Now compare that to a typical product you buy off the shelf. The amount of the active ingredient is often way, way lower. And that means the chances of you getting the same health benefit they saw in the lab, well, they're pretty slim.
All right, we've looked at the science, we've talked about the risks, we've seen the reality on the ground. So, what's the bottom line? How do you take all this information and make a smart, informed decision for yourself? It really boils down to this. The science is genuinely promising, no doubt about it, and it might lead to some amazing new medicines down the line. But the idea that you can go out today and buy a cannabis product that will slow down aging, right now, that is still far, far more hope than it is fact. Now, if you're still thinking about this, maybe for managing a specific symptom, here is your practical safety checklist. Number 1, and this is non-negotiable, talk to your doctor first. You have to discuss those potential drug interactions. 2, stick to legal, regulated routes. 3, if you and your doctor decide to go ahead, you have to start low and go slow. We're talking the absolute lowest possible dose. And finally, 4, avoid smoking. That just adds a whole other layer of health risks you don't need.
So let's just reset our expectations for a second. What's a realistic goal here? Based on everything we know right now, it's not about finding an anti-aging miracle. It's about the possibility of careful, targeted relief for a specific symptom, and usually only after other, more proven treatments haven't helped. And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for the future, doesn't it? As medicine keeps evolving, what will healthy aging actually look like? Is the future a pill from a pharmacist, or is it something derived from a plant but delivered with that same medical precision? It's definitely a space to watch. Thanks so much for joining me.